George.
I was talking to my best friend. He's living in Louisiana. And I named my second son after him. I talked to him on the phone. How's it going? You know, he was in graduate school, and it was all of a sudden he was like, "George, get off the table." Like, okay, so let me get this straight. I named my son after you, and you named your dog after me. Like, that's the way it goes. That dog is gone a long time. All right. So 2 goals. One is that we would have more gratitude for how life, the life we have is lived by the provision of God and the grace of God. So more gratitude for the provision of God and the grace of God. And the second hope is that when you leave after this reflection, you'll have more time in your life where you see God providing and giving you grace. So not only an appreciation for the provision of God, the grace of God, that as we think through and talk through and pray through this time together, but also moving forward, that you create more of the instinct that when you have what you need, you see it as sourced by so many things that God uses to give us what we need. And that every moment is grace. That we actually are sustained daily and moment by moment by moment by the way that God provides for everything. Okay, are you all ready? Are we already going? Good. So I call this, I call it the Tree of Life devotion. And when I did it the first time, I was in college, and I was a cocky 19-year-old, and I liked nature. And Dr. Brown, my botany teacher, took us out in the woods and found an oak tree, and he started talking. I wish I could have had a recording, but I'm going to try to help you have an opportunity to have something of what Dr. Brown gave us that day. So God is actually the source of all life. What happens though is that we get to thinking that we're living our lives as we live our lives, and it's our life. Like we get to decide when we get to decide when it is we get up and go to sleep, and we miss out on how God is actually, and how the creation that God has made, the universe is conspiring to give you and I the breath we're taking now, the life we're living now. So everybody say hello to the oak tree.
Hello.
Okay, and you know, some people make fun of tree huggers, but I would just like to say if we could really understand what trees do for us, they'd at least deserve a hug. And it would be the same for other people in our lives. It would be the same for the animals that provide the food and the plants that provide the food. But so I want y'all to help me. Okay, y'all ready to help? Tell me what this oak tree needs to live. Water. We got it. Okay. Wait. We got water. We got sunlight.
Nutrients.
Dirt. Exactly. Something has to hold it steady. What else does it need to live? Huh? Roots. Exactly. You the man. Roots. What else does it need to live? What's on the leaves? Exactly. What else does it need?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. And what else does it need?
Sun.
Sun. Yeah, sunlight. It also needs oxygen. There's respiration and aspiration in a tree's daily activity. So it's oxygen and carbon dioxide. Part of that, anyway, I won't get. If I chase rabbits, it'll take a lot longer. If it if it didn't have each of those, you would not be able to create this oak tree. How many acorns were planted in this area, do you think, when this oak tree won the competition on becoming the oak tree that lives here? How many acorns do you think got planted?
Thousands.
Hundreds and thousands. And what happened to some of those acorns? Squirrel food during the winter. Exactly. And then a lot of them came up. In fact, I would guess that if they weren't maintaining this cleared out, you would find little bitty oak trees all around the place. And who eats the little bitty oak trees? Deer, all kinds of things. Yeah. So this oak tree won the competition that became the oak tree that got big enough to stay here, while all the other oak trees were eaten earlier in life by a squirrel, later in life by the deer. And then this tree not only needs what we said, it actually needs the bugs that live in the oak tree. Are you aware that there are a lot of bugs living on the oak tree? When I get up in a tree and I'm deer hunting, and I get up there in September before the first frost, I notice a lot of bugs in the tree. After the first frost, not so much. But those bugs are there. They do all kinds of great things. And what else happens in this oak tree? Yeah, Jack. What else happens? That was the exact thing I was looking at. Man, that's good. Okay, and then and then what are we sitting? What am I in right now that this oak tree provides? Shade. Yes. And you realize that there are animals, if we were to go way in the woods where the oak tree might be living, there are animals who live through the hottest part of the summer in the shade. They do not and could not stay in the sun the whole time. Okay, now, what else does this oak tree do as a result of having roots? What would happen to all this dirt if it was a heavy rain without the roots? It would fill up the lake with dirt. And so this oak tree is actually holding the dirt there. That's pretty cool. Okay, now, how long do you think this oak tree has been living?
30 years.
On that.
30, 50. About as long as about any of us will probably be about right. That's good. No, I think it's yeah. And if you cut this tree, if you were to cut it and you saw the rings in it, what would those rings tell you? How many years it's been alive? And why would it be that some of those rings are wider and some of those rings are skinnier? Better weather. Yeah. Now, if you notice this tree go up, there's a bit of a break in the middle, and it kind of, the main branch goes one way and the main branch goes another. What might have happened when that branch grew one way and grew another?
Two seeds got planted beside each other.
Well, what might have happened was that you had a weather event that caused the crack, and then another branch formed at the crack, and it would fork. Now, there's natural forks that trees form, and then there are also times, in fact, one of the places I had my devotion when I lived in Wake Forest, I'd go out in the woods and I found this tree that had two trunks growing out of the same trunk, and I would sit between the two trunks, and I would sit there and think, each of these trees has a story, but they only exist because they separate and they grew separate. And big parts of an oak tree take shape for various reasons. Now, what else? What do the leaves provide for the tree? The chlorophyll in the leaves processes the water and the sunlight and produces sugar, because it's sugar that the tree actually lives on. And so you have the chloroplasts that have the chlorophyll in them, and it's a mystery. Dr. Brown said, George, do me a paper on photosynthesis. And so I started doing me a paper on photosynthesis and found out that they have the equation before and they have the equation after, and they're not really sure what happens in the middle. But what we know is this is what goes in and this is what comes out, and they're not really sure. Now, because the leaves have sugar and we all use sugar to live, that's what we live on in our bodies. Who else lives on the leaves besides the tree?
Insects.
Right. All of the leaf eaters. And I know turnip greens would tell us we're leaf eaters too. So would spinach and all kinds of things. But they're actually leaf eaters. And the way leaf eaters work and the way they relate to the tree is actually beneficial to the tree, not just beneficial to the leaf eaters. And have y'all ever seen a caterpillar who ate some leaves and then became something else? There's all kinds of transformation happening during the year with this tree. And then there are the parts that fall from the tree. The leaves each year fall down. The branch, the little sticks that are falling off the tree constantly, like this stick that falls off. What happens when all of those get on the ground? They decompose. They become food for the insects, for the worms, for the underground life. They become part of what sustains the ferns. Dr. Brown was walking, he said, those ferns couldn't live without that oak tree. And I'm like, what? If you didn't have the biomass, the plant material that would fall on the ground and decompose, the ferns would die, never even have a chance. So when you begin to think that the tree is an oak tree that's separate from those trees and separate from the pines, you think that because it grows out of the ground here, and that this pine tree grows out of the ground there, and this I saw a sweet gum. This sweet gum grows out of the ground over there, and you think all separate trees. No. They're not, because their roots help each other. What they've discovered, and it's fairly recent, is that there can be a tree here that has more water than the tree over there, and their roots are connected, and that this tree will actually share extra water with the tree over there, so that those trees are surviving because of this tree, and this tree survives because of those, and all the grass and other plants survive because of the tree. Like, okay. In fact, what they've discovered is that you know what a virgin forest is? It's one that's never been messed with by people. And there's not a lot of virgin forest left. But if you go in a virgin forest, what you end up finding out is that there are what they call mother trees. And there'll be a big tree, and you'll be like, why is this tree so prominent? And the land around it so rich. And you find out that that tree is the keeper of and the manager of water and nutrients and hosts the animals that make the whole forest, the virgin forest, actually work. I don't know. When Dr. Brown was doing this for me, I was having a mind-blowing experience. And then how many of you live in a house that would cause you to be grateful for some trees? Right. And so when we take the trees and we decide to do for ourselves what the leaf eaters and the insects are doing, we're making houses out of it. Who makes houses out of the tree? We already heard nests, so the squirrels and the birds. Who else makes their home in trees? Raccoons, exactly.
People.
We cut down the trees. We make how about woodpeckers, right? Bees make There are hives inside of entry and ants, exactly.
Squirrels.
And when you get to thinking about it, do what? Termites, exactly. Don't miss it. And the termites attack the dead wood, which means they feed on it, and then they get eaten by the birds, so they actually become the food for it. You see how it's all wood? It's crazy how it all fits. I also make sure I didn't forget any particular thing. And if this were to be a fruit tree, then you would just woo, because each piece of fruit has seeds, and then the fruit is actually eaten by different insects and animals than the nuts, and woo. Anyway, I get all excited. I like sitting in a tree to go hunting, only I'm not there. The deer get in the way when they walk by, and they taste good and chili, so I do take the time to harvest the deer, but they interrupt what's happening, because what we're doing in this is we're actually opening up ourselves to the possibility that we could actually pay attention to what this oak is to us and what this oak is to everything else that this oak relates to. Now, let's just make a real quick list of everything that benefits from this oak tree. We've talked about it. Let's make a list. Who and what benefit?
Other trees.
Trees.
People.
You jumped right to the end. Yes, we would not be breathing. Humans would not have the capacity to live without the network we're talking about. And the thing is, you could say, well, it's all about the tree. And I would say, no, the tree is the occasion on which we see it all. But there's actually a squirrel going, yep, I did that. That was my acorn. I planted that year that became the oak tree. And there'll be a woodpecker saying, yep, I helped him get through one winter because of how I moved this around to that and made the holes just so that it could get this nutrient and that nutrient. Now, what happens to us when we leave the garden? This is the sermon part. What happens to us when we leave the garden is that we eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What happens is that we become the ones who say it's all about me. It's good if it's good for me. It's not good if it's not good for me. And we leave the garden, because in the garden, you live in harmony with everything. In fact, I would submit to you that one of the things that's true is that we all live in a space where we refuse to live in the garden. I call it my house and my HVAC system. Every day of my life, I set my thermostat and I go, this is where I will live. Thank you very much. And all of creation is used and built and changed so that we can maintain a space and we forget the garden. Because when we're in the garden, I love you and you love me. We love nature. Nature takes care of us. We take care of nature. We actually have what we need. And our experience of not having what we need in terms of love, and our experience of not having what we need in terms of our provisions for life, are simply because we leave the garden. We get in our heads and we think it's all about me or all about my group, and we don't live in harmony with each other. So Jesus comes along, and it's brilliant what Jesus says. I mean, I know we're Jesus people, but it's just absolutely brilliant. He's like, if you want to consider what I'm talking about, consider the lilies, consider the birds. Stop and pay attention. Notice what's going on. And in this tree, the tree of life, we did not leave the garden by eating from the tree of life. We left the garden by eating of the tree that told us we were the ones who were the answers to what was right and wrong, good and bad. And we stopped living in harmony with each other and with the world around us. And Jesus comes along and says, I'm restoring the garden. After we eat lunch, we're going to share communion. The earliest artwork of communion in the church was actually the artwork of Jesus bringing all of his disciples back to the garden. And then after the Roman Empire took over, it became forgiveness of sin. Like there was a punishment, you were spared punishment. But that's because the Roman Empire took over. What the church was saying was, we got separated from each other. And when we get together as a church, we're all going to share a meal. And we're going to be together. And we're going to share communion. A communion that is a table where Jesus invites everyone to come to the table. And we're back in the garden and we look around and we say, every time you see a tree, it's not just the tree, it's everything we need. And everything the tree needs happens. And every time George is seen, George has everything George needs to survive. And it's not only that, I'm part of you all having what you need to survive. And when we don't think that's true, it's sin. When we get separated from each other, that is the problem. How about that? Do you like what Dr. Brown did? I mean, I just was like, and even if you're very different, how different is a squirrel from a termite, from a leaf, from the sun, from the wind? And not only that, I didn't take that one thing that hit me that was on the list, but I think about it. One reason trees make it is they get blown by the wind. And one reason they make it is they have what's called phototropism, which means that when the cells grow, the side the light's on doesn't grow as fast because it gets the nutrient it wants, and the others grow a little faster, which turns the plant towards the source of sun. So you can plant a plant in an opening, and the plant will actually grow to the hole in the canopy. I planted tulips in front of the parsonage at Woodland Baptist Church, and it faced east, and the tulips grew at a 45-degree angle because they didn't get once the eaves of the house covered it. They only got sun in the morning, so they were like that, and they looked really pretty if you were in front of them because they were all pointing at you. Turn to the side, and you're like, what's going on? And they have hydrotropism. So when they have less water in the roots, cells of the roots grow out towards where the water is. So they actually grow towards their source of water. How is it for our soul? I would submit that what we need to do is grow towards the light of God and the living water of God, and realize that that's not just in church, that's in each other. That's not just in each other, it's in nature, it's in the wind and the food that we eat and the glory of God. All it is. And I think it's grace, because we didn't make the tree, and you didn't make me, and I didn't make you, and I'm not the reason you're alive. The reasons we're alive are so numerous we can't name them all, and it's grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I was blind, but now I see. Like the tree, through many dangers, toils, and snares. Through many dangers, I have already come. I have already come. It's grace that brought me safe thus far. It's grace that brought me safe thus far. And grace will lead me on, and grace will lead me on. Great. Thank you for the wind. You said your spirit is like the wind. We don't know always where you were coming from in our lives, but we can feel when you arrive. We don't always know where our lives are moving, but we can if we pay attention, follow you into a life that's full of good things, where we can be loved and we can love. So help us to be your people. Help us to enjoy this time so that in the midst of this day, with the wind blowing and the sun shining, we could be as faithful to become all that we can be as this oak tree. Help us to move towards the things that feed our souls. Help us to let others in so many different ways. Help us live our lives and grow. Give us gratitude and give us eyes to see how you work. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We're going to go start Tim. What came first, the acorn or the tree?
Together. They came together.
Yeah. All right. Love y'all. We're going to go start the fire and we'll